Not the only interesting thing to happen recently. So Dave Chappelle is a person, and that's that's cool. Less cool was the fact that he did a pretty transphobic comedy special recently. Now, I watched the special. I found a lot of it entertaining because I do think Dave Chappelle is funny. But a lot of it was also undeniably transphobic. And to be clear, it was not transphobic in the way that a lot of Dave Chappelle's jokes, which are racist, are informed and funny and interesting. A lot of Dave Chappelle's commentary on race, they're like racist jokes. And in addition to being funny, they're like informed and sometimes kind of insightful. You know, you can actually like think about it, maybe learn a bit. Even if they're edgy or problematic, I still think they're valuable. I don't think that his jokes on trans people, for the most part, were valuable. So, anyway, since then there's been some controversy. Dave Chappelle explicitly endorsed a hate group in his comedy special. TERFs are a hate group. I'm not gonna, I'll play your optics game or whatever for the segment on the comedy special, but TERFs are a hate group. No getting around it. That's what they are. That's what they do. They're a hate group. Don't care. Didn't ask. Don't care. So anyway, we've had some stuff happen. So first, geez, okay, how do we So a couple of people have been fired, okay? The first person who was fired was did I have that tweet out there? No, I didn't. Okay. The first person who was fired was a woman who did this big tweet chain complaining about Dave Chappelle. She worked at Netflix, and then she was fired shortly afterwards for interrupting a meeting. Apparently she was fired from Netflix just right after. Oh, not just her, two other employees, three employees in total, suspended for attending a director-level meeting they weren't invited to, including trans software engineer Tara Field, who's been vocal about Chappelle's special on Twitter. There we go. And then they were shortly reinstated afterwards. So I gotta wonder about this, you know? Suspended for attending a director-level meeting? What is that? Did they, like, so they were there, like, and they wanted to talk, and then what, did they hear, like, secret info? Did they just intrude on a Zoom link? I don't know. Yeah, I have no idea. It just seems really weird. It seems like a little bit of a how do you put this? A little bit of a don't fuck with us. I mean, she did this big rant on Twitter. It got tens of thousands of likes and stuff, and then, you know, she gets like a BS suspension, it seems, but they're brought back right afterwards. Yeah, I don't know. Anyway, it's weird stuff, but that's not the only that's not the only reason that folks are getting fired out here. Another person's been fired since then because they evidently well, they evidently leaked some proprietary information. Vosh, it's really not appropriate to just invite yourself to a meeting in a corporate setting. I really think there's a lot of context there uh that we're not aware of that could really change the circumstances there. Some people say she was invited, in which case it was just a blatant firing. In other cases, it's really hard to tell. Anyway, hush up. They were staging a walkout, and the leader of that walkout leaked some information internally, apparently to Bloomberg, some metrics on the show's performance and its cost, I believe. So they've now been fired for leaking that information. I think that's why do I have 4 of these articles open? I don't even know if they're all. Why would I didn't even like mentally like note which ones are for which. Ugh, whatever. Anyway, they're since been reinstated, and there we go. Yeah. The employee was terminated on suspicion of leaking metrics to the press related to the Dave Chappelle special. Those metrics about how much Netflix played for the closer and how much people it reached. Apparently, they paid more for the closer, that 1-hour Dave Chappelle special, than for the entirety of Squid Game, which is kind of wild. And that ended up in a report on Bloomberg. You've reached your free article limit. Thank you, Bloomberg. I appreciate that. Yeah, here we go. Netflix spent $24.1 million on the closer, slightly more than Chappelle's 2019 special. The 9-episode Squid Game cost $21.4 million. Woof. Wow, I guess we know what we should be funding in the future. Folks, what would you rather have in the future? Another Squid Game tier show, or another 1 hour of Dave Chappelle boomeranting about how TERFs are right into the microphone? I don't know, man. That seems like an easy cost benefit you're gonna throw out there. Woo! And Inside was $3.9 million, man. Whew. Well, anyway, so a walkout was being planned, and I wanted to take a look at that. So Netflix employees are staging a walkout amid Dave Chappelle controversy. We've talked about all of the circumstances surrounding the controversy. About 65 demonstrators protested outside the company's offices on Wednesday. That would be today. I'm pretty sure today is Wednesday. Thank you. I'm a streamer, but I keep tabs on the time. I'm doing good. I'm doing good. And of course, naturally, the discourse that followed is sort of the standard discourse that we see whenever stuff like this takes place. So, as I understand it, Netflix has made the argument that they felt the content of Dave Chappelle's special uh, did not have a potential to inflict real world harm. Now, I think, there we go. We have a strong belief that content on stream doesn't translate into real world harm. So, this is what we call delusional. Okay? This is Netflix's co CEO, Ted Sarandos. How the fuck are you co CEO of one of the largest media companies on the planet, and you don't believe content on stream translates into real world harm? Listen, everyone believes this, okay? Even the most Gamergate-esque anti-SJWs believe this, which is why they bitch and moan every time gay people are included in media, okay? We very clearly know, all available evidence shows, undeniably, with just very clearly, that yes, people are affected by media they see on screen. If they weren't, why would people pay for advertisements? Obviously they are. If they can't be affected, nobody would ever spend billions trying to change their minds on stuff via social, like, clearly not, okay? Ridiculous. But to quote gamers on Twitter, does that mean you think video games cause violence? I'm pretty sure studies have shown that violent video games actually do affect people's not predisposition to commit violence, but how seriously they take violence. So, to put it another way, the evidence seems to suggest that watching kind of like rapey porn may not make you more likely to rape, but it does make you less sympathetic to rape victims. And that, in terms of the social harm being done, at the very least, is affecting the same general sets of issues. Because people who aren't very sympathetic to rape victims mean that you have a less of a social pushback against rape, which means more rape is going to happen. So it's not playing Doom 2016 makes you kill people. It's that I feel like the Doom games are probably relatively good as violent games go because you're fighting demons, you know? It's not like a Call of Duty game where you're kind of like aesthetizing the violence that you do against real people. It's, Doom 2016 or Doom Eternal or whatever. I mean, you're dabbing on demons. You can kill as many. I don't give a fuck if you guys are violent towards demons. Go for it. Have fun. But anyway, the evidence is very clear on this. Very, very clear on this. Okay? Content on stream translates to real world good and real world harm. Ideas that are demonstrated on screen can affect people's positions. And especially because, and please keep this in mind, we're not talking about whether or not video games make people violent. We're talking about whether or not watching an insanely influential comedian explicitly endorse a hate movement might empower that hate movement. You would have to be delusional to believe that there is not a direct one-to-one correlation between that being demonstrated and that happening in the real world. And if you don't believe that, then you must not believe humans are capable of being influenced by anything anywhere. Okay? So, I mean, don't lie, all right? Don't lie. Netflix said when reached out to by CNN, our employees are encouraged to disagree openly and we support their right to do so. Nice. Glad the LGBTQ media advocacy organization voiced concerns over Chappelle's comments in the closer and pushed back on the position Sarandos took in his notes to staff. And then they say what is a better position and is less dumb. A less dumb position. Thank you. So the main issue here is that the co-CEO of Netflix, and I'm guessing this influences company culture, is pretty explicitly lying about the metrics by which they assess the harm that media produced through their content can cause. I find it really difficult to believe that somebody in the position of power Sarandos has isn't aware of the data on this. I mean, he's wealthy and influential. I'm sure, if nothing else, I think that, it's reasonable to expect that he would know this stuff. But either he doesn't or, he lies about it. Look, I think that Netflix had a right to publish The Closer, Dave Chappelle special. And I think the employees at Netflix have a right to do a walkout. If we're talking exclusively about what we have a legal right to, then I think both groups have that right. But morally, I think that we are much better off in a world where content like that Dave Chappelle special is heavily punished. And I'll tell you again, folks, I will tell you again, okay? If there was a white conservative comedian who got up on stage and casually endorsed far right racist hate groups because he had some misinformed boomer understanding of the situation and then went ahead to make a bunch of jokes at the expense of black people, not only would that person be deplatformed, uh, Dave Chappelle would probably agree with that deplatforming. I think it's extremely funny that Dave Chappelle claims that trans people's existence is some kind of deflection that allows them to avoid racist criticisms made at white people, when the only reason that Dave Chappelle was able to get away with what he did up there was because he's black and they're trans, as opposed to him being white and them being black. It is specifically because the group that he is targeting does not have his issues taken as seriously, and because he has some degree of minority deflection, that this conversation has taken the shape that it has right now. It's very important to keep that in mind. And there's nothing fair about that from either side of things. I just want to point out that if things were on the other side, and it was some white guy making ill-informed jokes about black people, like racist-ass jokes, while saying, and he likes black people, he's not racist, he just then makes, like, racist jokes about them. And then he went on to say, he heard something or another about, you got black folk, and then you've got, like, the Charlottesville protesters, and then he was like, oh, they just wanted to keep the statue up, and people were mad that they wanted to keep a bit of Charlottesville's General Lee statue up. Well, I'm on Team Charlottesville, or some shit like that, That person would be taken right down, okay? That person would be cucked, all right? That person would be nuked from orbit. Just something to keep in mind. We all believe it's important to mitigate the spread of bigotry. People like Norm Macdonald said way edgier shit than Chappelle. Many comedians have. Where's the line? It's no line, Shu. You think someone's being a bigot, you can push back against it. Keep in mind, I'm only advocating for people to use their First Amendment rights to demonstrate that they dislike bigoted media. I'm not talking about government busting down anyone's doors. We all got that right. I don't know any specific jokes of Norm Macdonald. But anyone named McDonald, I mean, whew, you gotta worry, huh? You gotta wonder. He was death on Family Guy? Well, that doesn't tell me very much about the kinds of jokes that he's made. Somebody in chat said that Sarandos moved back on his positions. Oh, yeah, here we go. Netflix CEO Ted Sarandos admits he screwed up on the Chappelle response. The streamer CEO acknowledged the company bungled its response to a crisis, but has done little to make amends. All right, so what do we got? He screwed up internal communications just hours before employees were set to stage a virtual walkout. Sarandos admitted Netflix's recent moves to curtail employee backlash over the special, including temporarily suspending 3 employees for crashing an executive member meeting, firing a pregnant organizer, doubling down on claims that content on stream doesn't directly translate real harm, had maybe not been the savviest way to handle a burgeoning crisis at the company. I had a group of employees who were definitely feeling pain and hurt from a decision we made, and I think that needs to be acknowledged up front before you get into the nuts and bolts of anything, Sarandos told Variety. I didn't do that. That was uncharacteristic of me. This seems like it's not actually him moving off these positions. It was just him saying, like, he's sorry that it exacerbated antagonism or something like that. I don't know. Yeah, I don't know. Sarandos also reversed course on prior statements about the impact of the platform's storytelling, admitting that, of course, storytelling has an impact in the real world, sometimes positive and sometimes negative. Okay, so this means that he lied the first time. This was a lie to begin with. There's no reason an adult CEO would change his mind on an issue so pivotal to his industry over the course of like 5 days because of like Twitter backlash or something. He knew this was the case to begin with. He just employed the idea that there's no relationship between harm on screen and harm in the real world as a sort of reflexive defense. Very good stuff. Finally we have demands written by the striking, not the Walkout Netflix employees, and I wanted to take a look at those so I could do my normal both sides criticize everyone on the left thing. Over the past few weeks, this is their letter. Over the past few weeks, It has become clear that there are many places where Netflix still has to grow when it comes to content related to the trans and non-binary community. The trans, the trans asterisk. Remember when we all did that? Employee resource group, which includes trans and this is one of the reasons why I hate it when people change fucking LGBTQ terminology every 6 months, because any orgs made during a time when people were going through change, you guys don't even know. You guys don't even remember. Guys, who here remembered the trans asterisk? This was all the thing back in like 5 or 6 years ago. You really didn't? I remember you talking about it. Yeah. It's always shifting. Just whatever. Okay, I don't care. It's still a thing at my college, Vosh. Yeah. Anyway, we want Netflix to immediately take the steps below to begin to repair the relationship between the company, our colleagues, and the audience. Specifically, we want the company to adopt measures in the area of content investment, employee relations and safety, and harm reduction, all of which are necessary to avoid future instances of platform and transphobia and hate speech, and to account for the harm we have caused and will continue to cause until the below measures are put in place. Let's see! Create a new fund to specifically develop trans and non-binary talent. Let's put a pin in this one. This fund should support both above-the-line and below-the-line talent. This fund should exist in addition to the existing Creative Equity Fund. What does it mean? It means trans people. Trans asterisk just means trans. Like every other stupid optical little terminology change, it meant the exact same shit. There was no difference. People were typing trans, and then people who were woker than them were like, what if we added an asterisk? And then they started using the asterisk. That's literally it. I'm sorry, that's literally it, okay? And they did that for a while, and then they stopped doing it. That's how it is. I remember these days. But I never gave in. I never used the asterisk. I never kowtowed to the woke mob. I never surrendered. Anyway. Increase investment in trans and non-binary content on Netflix comparable to our total investment in transphobic content, including marketing and promotion. Invest in multiple trans creators to make both scripted and unscripted programs across genres. Revise internal processes on commissioning and releasing potentially harmful content, including but not limited to involving parties who are a part of the subject community and can speak to potential harm, or consulting with third-party experts/vendors. Increase the ERG role in conversations around potentially harmful content and ensure we have the best-in-class regional support on complicated intersectional diversity issues. Hire trans and non-binary content executives, especially by POC, in leading positions. I'll tear into this in a second. Employee relations and safety. Recruit trans people, especially by POC, for leadership roles in the company and promote an inclusive environment for them. Allow employees to remove themselves from previous company promotional content, i.e.g. allyship and diversity videos, etc. Eliminate references / imagery of transphobic titles or talent inside the workplace, including but not limited to murals, posters, room names, swag. Okay. Harm reduction. Acknowledge the harm and Netflix's responsibility for this harm from transphobic content, and in particular harm to the black trans community. Add a disclaimer before transphobic titles that specifically flag transphobic language, misogyny, homophobia, hate speech, etc. as required. Boost promotion for disclosure and other trans-affirming titles on the platform. Suggest trans-affirming content alongside and after content flagged as anti-trans. We are employees, but members too. We believe this company can and must do better in its quest to entertain the world, and that the way forward must include more diverse voices in order to avoid causing more harm. The trans asterisk ERG looks forward to working with the company to make this a better, more entertaining place for us all. Okay, this isn't as bad as I expected it to be. However, I do have a couple of issues. Who decides what's transphobic, homophobic, etc.? What they're essentially saying is they want to eliminate transphobia in the company. They want money to be put towards the creation of trans and non-binary developed and friendly content. And they want some kind of internal team that can cut down on, or at the very least limit, bigoted content being promoted by the site or the platform. Okay, so a couple of things here. This is a really difficult issue to touch on because I don't think it's acceptable for media to become unavailable if some group of like Netflix employees says that it's bigoted. That to me is a little fucked up, like conceptually. The idea that the ability to produce media is getting like gate kept behind. So I'm okay with like shitting on Chappelle for the transphobia, but there's a difference between attacking it after it's made and preventing it from being made at all. I think there's a big difference between those things. I feel like it's possible that you could have warnings or stuff like that, but I don't know how much like of a change that would really make. Like, would that affect anything besides make Netflix look like they're kowtowing to the SJW like mob without actually changing or affecting anything. I think that I think that putting money towards trans and non-binary friendly content is a good idea. I gotta wonder though that like the main thing that I want to know right now is what rules and regulations are there in Netflix to avoid promoting hateful content already? Because I know there is. I know that you can't just throw something on Netflix if it's like obscenely hateful. There are limits. They do have some kind of standard, you know? I I have to wonder what that standard is. What is their internal what's their internal process, you know? Because if there's a process that exists already, maybe it would be possible to just refine it a little bit, make it a little bit more inclusive with the groups that it affects. So there should be a screening process for Netflix before something is released. There already is. There already is 100%. Netflix won't just put anything out there, you know? There clearly is some way that they obviously review stuff before they put it on, you know? I just wonder what that process is. Yeah. I'm trying to think, like, how could you adjust something like that? Cuties made it through? Yeah, but that's not the issue we're looking at right now, right? Cuties, whatever the fuck Cuties was, whatever the fuck Cuties meant, it wasn't it wasn't the issue with it wasn't that it needed to be screened for bigotry. It needed to be screened for something else. Yeah, it needed to be screened for French, okay? Netflix needs an internal anti-French review board, and I think that would have meaningfully solved the issue. You know, but that's another issue. Did you watch Cuties? No, fuck no. I saw what's his name's video on it. The TikTok guy, the guy who makes TikToks but also makes fun of TikToks. What's his name? No, not Noah Samson. The guy, he's the like e-boy Kurt something. Kurt, didn't he do the video? Kurt something? Curtis Connor. I think he made a video on it, right? Yeah, I think I watched his video. If it wasn't him, I don't know whose it was, but yeah, I didn't watch it myself. Seemed pretty yikesy. But we're not talking about that. We're talking about like screening for bigotry. Oh, he didn't do that? Then it was someone Curtis Connor-esque. I don't know. Um Yeah, Curtis Connor's cute. Yeah. No, I do forget Curtis Connor's name like every single time. Yeah. Sorry, but yeah. Anyway, with regards to the way of screening stuff like this, I would want to know how you could modify the existing system that they have. Because I don't want to 1984 this shit, you know? Like I don't want to be like, "Oh, sorry, the gods of the woke Netflix internal corporate wing have decided that this piece of media is unacceptable." I don't know. I feel like there could be some really bad outcomes to that. There needs to be an incentive structure, though, some way of pushing along stuff like that. I wonder. Hmm. Literally, why not? What's the actual worst that can happen? Because it's because it's censorship. Because I don't like it. I don't like it. I feel like it could be used for bad things potentially. I feel like it's bordering on too close. And also, honest to God, I don't really having a TOS that stops bigotry for Reddit's okay, but not for Netflix. Yes, because there's a big difference between a social media site and like a piece of art that you've produced that gets like censored, I think. Even YouTube, I think, isn't the same. First of all, you know that publisher platform distinction that conservatives are always running on about? Netflix is literally a publisher. Not in some hyperbolic way, like they literally do the publishing, you know? So in that case, there is a greater degree of direct supervision over the stuff that's being produced. So bigotry is okay when it's art? No, I didn't say that it's okay. I do, however, think that there is value, potentially, in the existence for artistic processes which allow for bigoted material to be produced. Because if it weren't for stuff like that, I feel like we would miss out on a huge range of expression that we could potentially critique or attack. Like, I'm trying to think what a good example of this would be. I'm not saying that the world like needs transphobic videos or something. I'm just saying that like yeah, like I don't know, man. Can you imagine if that like an SJW brigade like made a movie like a fucking Mel Brooks movie censored or something? Like what if yeah, what if like Blazing Saddles got like cut down, you know? I don't know. It feels like I don't, yeah. Art can be messy sometimes, you know? And I hold a much higher standard for stuff like this on publishers like Netflix than on platforms like YouTube. For YouTube, I don't care as much because, you know, uh anyone can just throw a video up, and honestly, you have to be pretty bad for like YouTube to be like flagged or whatever. Give us an example of problematic media that needs to be available for consumption, like Mel Gibson films, or I don't know, Tarantino films, or fuck, there's edgy shit that comes out that I think is, what about Boondocks, dude? Boondocks is full of racist jokes against black people. I don't know, just um yeah. Did I say Mel Gibson? Mel Brooks. Sorry, Mel Gibson and Mel Brooks are actually opposites in every imaginable way, okay? One of them is a raging anti-Semite, and the other one, it despises raging anti-Semites. You know, there's a very big, yeah, Mel Brooks films. Stuff like that, I don't know. I think we need to be really careful with how we consider stuff like that, in my humble opinion, you know? Mel Brooks said that political correctness is the death of comedy since comedy is built around transgression. While that's true, keep in mind that when he's talking about political correctness, he wasn't talking about like SJW terminology. He was talking about oh, D'Angelo Wallace made the video on cuties. Thank you. Um he was talking about like the stifling social norms of his time. The transgressions he was talking about were transgressions against like politeness, you know? He was talking about transgressions against uh uh transgressions against social norms, not like being reactionary or whatever, or like Christian values, stuff like that. Yeah, political correctness can include like fundamentalist Christians saying that it's bad to say hell in public or whatever. Not like banning old movies, preventing new movies from being made or bigoted or harmful. We basically do this already for most minority groups, so not trans people yet. um Yeah, but it depends on the extent, right? The impact. I guess I'd have to think about it. I mean, we don't ban them legally. It's just like what platforms are willing to host. If Netflix really decided that they didn't want to host stuff that was like considered transphobic, I guess that would probably do more good for the world than bad. I have to wonder what the I have to wonder about those lines, man. I don't know. I do hold a higher standard for some of this stuff. What about old media? Well, or yeah, like putting old media up. Like, should they not put like Christmas Story up because it's like problematic? I don't know, man. I'd have to think about it. Fuck. Look, my pontificating aside, I support these walkouters. Okay, these outwalkers. Okay, these walkout walkers. Okay, I support them. Okay. There's basically no chance that anything they're advocating for does harm, and there's a possibility that what they advocate for here does good. So yeah, I doubt anything will change, but we'll have to see. Um, General support, uncritical support. There you go, uncritical support. Congratulations. We did it, folks. We did it. Reddit.